Rolling. We're live. All right. Downers, welcome to the show. My guest today is Maxwell Mooney. He's a coffee educator and somebody I've known just for a little short period of time, but have intensely enjoyed talking to him about coffee, something I know a marginal amount about at best. So we're going to get into that. I want to remind you guys my sponsor tonight is Loot Crate. And so if you go to lootcrate.com/down, you can search around over there and see if you see something you like. And if you enter my promo code DOWN, you'll get $3 off any new subscription today. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in the future. Thank you to everybody who bookmarks my Amazon link on my website. Go to breakitdownpod.com, bookmark my Amazon, make sure you subscribe, tell people about this podcast, and even subscribe. I got YouTube. I put these videos up on YouTube. Particularly excited today because we've been working on our studio a little bit. I got some art up. I have somebody, I'm not on Skype. Maxwell's sitting right here with me in case you can't see it if you're just listening audio only. And I just put this table together. I just stained it and cut it with my new jigsaw I got for Christmas. And so having people in the studio is such a treat in a time where every 90% of podcasts seem to be just done over Skype in somebody's bedroom. And I feel lucky to be sitting here with you tonight, Maxwell. So thank you for coming.
Man, I'm happy to be here. I feel pretty lucky myself. Yeah.
Well, so you've done some other podcasts just to talk about coffee and stuff already.
Yeah, I've done a few.
So, I mean, there's whole podcasts that are just about coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few big ones, and actually another one just came out today. So coffee as a subject's picking up quite a bit for podcasts.
Yes, that's what's really interesting is just, I mean, the whole thing of coffee being a subject is just, it's really interesting. It's almost weird. Like,
yeah, I get that.
Like, I guess, I mean, there's a job called coffee educator. Yeah. That's your job.
Yeah, as a title.
I mean, that's just, it's weird. I'm trying to think of parallel things to that. Like, what are the closest things to coffee? Like
craft beer, wine.
Craft beer is a similar
sommelier
industry.
would be, I mean, their job technically is to pair food with wine, but, you have to know a ridiculous amount of stuff about wine to be a sommelier.
Tobacco doesn't quite have the same. There's tobacco connoisseurs and stuff.
No,
though,
totally, yeah. I mean, there's cigar enthusiasts who know, way more stuff than I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it really has grown a ton in... Is the explosion in coffee knowledge directly related to the internet? How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. Mm-hmm. A lot of that's due to just the internet gives you a platform to share information and knowledge. Right. And so the coffee industry broadly has been able to share and like collectively gather data on coffee and really like dig into coffee in ways that it hasn't been able to, or at least hasn't been able to kind of spread out to the layman type of, everyday coffee people. So, now it's like there are full apps that you can like brew, like scales that are connected to apps that you can brew your coffee on, and it'll fully track and give you a graph with all the data of it. And then you can share that with other people, and then you can like measure the exact extraction that you're getting and all this stuff. So you can share all this, and all this kind of collective information gathering has led to a lot of advances in the coffee industry.
Yeah, so even data-driven as far as the research and everything.
Yes,
the first time I ever noticed coffee, I mean, okay, so how about this? I grew up in South Carolina in the 80s, and coffee was just brown stuff that you drink. I mean, it's better than they were doing in the Civil War. I mean, they were percolating it. My grandma had a percolator and or instant coffee was around a lot when I was growing up, just regular Nestle.
Yeah,
instant. It wasn't a thing. And when I moved to I know it had started before this, but when I moved to Seattle in 2001, I was like, oh, people care about coffee? Like it's even a thing to care about. It was just something, you have it, and there's powdered cream. I'd never seen anything beyond that. I never even thought about it.
Absolutely.
And I didn't drink it at all. I didn't even care. I thought, coffee, yuck. And it took me a while being around enough Starbucks here in Seattle, and then knowing some people that worked at Starbucks. And our drummer, Seth in Emory, got a job at Starbucks. And then eventually he started saying, well, try this Frappuccino and stuff like that. And eventually, as a guy in my mid-20s, was like,
absolutely.
Well, I guess that's all right. Eventually, I got an iced peppermint mocha, and I was like, okay, I think that's okay. And I've slowly started stripping away the sweet stuff and the whipped cream or whatever. And eventually, I was like, oh, I like it.
Yeah.
And then at some point, probably age 28, I was drinking coffee at home, and I bought a coffee maker. I was like, wow. And I'm like, oh, I'm into it or whatever. And then I started meeting people and noticing around that time, which just would have been 2007 or 8, I started noticing people talking about coffee in a nerdy way. And I was like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're like, okay, they got a French press and they're telling somebody else about their method. I was like, how dorky is that? Good gosh. It's just,
first off, it is dorky. Yeah, man, like that's actually right around the time when that started really picking up. That kind of their coffee industry generally uses like now we kind of use terms waves. And so like the third wave really started to pick up kind of around that time. That's when like I think if you're going to put a definition on it, which a lot of people are really weary to do because nobody likes labels, right? But if you're going to put one on it, that's kind of like the celebration of coffee farms and coffee itself as being something that's high quality, like and enjoyable, like wine, or something like that. So that's just kind of started really getting a lot of steam right around like 2006, 2007. Yeah.
But even the people I'm talking about, they were just talking about French press, it was still paled in comparison to the amount of detail that when I talked to you, it was like, whoa. Yeah. Like the people that I know, for instance, Aaron Sprinkles, he's really into whatever he gets into, and he was always into coffee. So when I was working with him, he would always talk about coffee. We'd take coffee breaks, he'd talk about it, and he had a scale. And I was like, nice. You got to be kidding me about that. And so he would tell me about coffee, and I thought it was pretty interesting, but whatever. But when I met you and talked to you, when we did that cupping, when we were developing the coffee for BC Supply, this is not like Maxwell's not like your nerdy coffee friend that weighs his beans. This is a whole nother level that is absolutely mind blowing to me that some of the stuff we talked about that day and that I've noticed and been able to understand and think about even just since then to now, since we started doing some high quality coffee stuff. But your level of it it's not even nerd. It's like scientist or mathematician or it's professional or on some weird level.
That's what I would consider myself a coffee professional. Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm a coffee scientist or anything. I don't have any background in that, but and there are people in the industry who have forgotten more than I know about coffee, So,
I just didn't know there was that much there, but there's a ton. Specifically you and see if I'm getting this right, but you scored 13th in a national barista contest.
Yeah, similar. I
didn't even know
my score came out about to be about the 13th highest, but yeah. So every year,
national barista contest. What do you do?
Yeah, it's called the United States Barista Competition, and basically what you do is you go up and you travel to wherever the thing is. So I'm getting ready to do this in like 2 weeks. We're going to Knoxville, Tennessee is where it's being held, like the preliminary one. But basically you have 4 different judges and you have to serve them each an espresso, a cappuccino. Well, now it's a milk drink. It used to be a cappuccino and then a signature beverage of some sort, which is kind of like your own personal creation. And so you serve these 4 judges and they meticulously break down every little detail of the coffee. They give you scores based on flavor descriptors that you use to describe how it tastes. They do tactile descriptions and they do accuracy of the flavor descriptors and balance. So like they'll score you on all of those things. And then there's 2 technical judges who stand and watch everything that you're doing behind the coffee bar and will like judge you for the tiniest little bit of coffee that gets on the counter. So it's really intense and it takes up a ridiculous amount of my time whenever I decide to do it. So
because you have to train for it,
people train for months and months. I was working at a place down in Seattle practicing for this thing, and the current Iranian barista champion is there practicing for the Worlds, which is in like 5 months.
I'm not laughing at you, but that's just insane.
Yeah, I know it. It's crazy. We put a ton of time and effort into it. I kind of think of it as like an Iron Chef for baristas, but where you have to give a presentation.
So it's like a golfer thing. You had to hit 1,000 range. I mean, you had to pull 100 shots a day just to keep your chops up or something.
More than that sometimes. Yeah.
And how do you? I mean, that's the same thing I think about people that train for eating contests. It sounds like expensive. We can't. What do you do with all those shots? You throw them out, or you serve them to people? Or what?
Sometimes you end up throwing them out. It depends on what you're doing, right? Because I mean, the idea of these barista competitions is that you're working on a bar, behind a bar every single day, and you're making drinks for people. So the idea is that we can help elevate the craft of being a barista and help people serve their guests better by having these competitions and stuff. So the idea is that you're reinforcing all the training that you're doing for competition. You're reinforcing it on the bar every single day. So you should be practicing while you're on the bar. And it's like any given shift, you can pull anywhere from 100 to 400 shots of espresso or something. So
I see. So barista, is that Do we not? Is that not the feminine term? Is that not like flight
No, man,
stewardess? I mean, it's not barista.
No.
What's the masculine form of barista? And that's not a girl term.
No, it's Italian, man. So
Okay.
Italian, like it's like Spanish or a lot of languages where certain words have a gendering to them, but
There's no gender to barista.
No, not at all. It just means bartender in Italian. So anybody who's attending a bar, this is just a daytime bar. But yeah,
They didn't change it to coffee
barista
attendant.
or broista or something. I've heard all of those. I'm like, no, man, I'm a barista.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the 13th highest score in this thing. That's insane to me. What's the prize and what's the motivation for you to do the training to do that? Like it helps your career.
Totally. So the prizes, if you win, then you get a trip to a coffee producing country, and you'll travel and visit different coffee farms and those sorts of things, and then they'll pay for you to go on to the next level of the competition. So if you win the United States barista competition, then the SCA, actually this just got announced today, but anyway, they'll pay for you to go to the world competition, which this year's in Seoul, South Korea. So they'll pay for you to move on. But the idea is that then you are an ambassador for specialty coffee. So you're like the person who's out like helping people understand and all that stuff. I guess similar to what I'm doing right now is just kind of helping, help explain what coffee is to people. So
specialty coffee and third wave are both terms that you've used already.
Yeah.
Specialty coffee makes kind of sense. It just means fancy coffee, I guess, to most people. Third wave, a little, as I've used that term, a lot of people don't know it.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's get through there. What are the coffee waves?
Totally. So I guess we'll start with specialty coffee as a definition.
Okay.
Just because there's a little bit more, at least in terms of a technical jargon definition. So specialty coffee is defined as any coffee that exceeds 80 points on a cupping table. And a cupping is a process that we go through to evaluate the quality of a coffee. It's particularly used to find defects and help people at origin level sort through coffees and make sure that the coffees are of high quality before they get sold off. But generally, it means anything that's cupping over that, which most of like your Starbucks and kind of your even your Dunkin' Donuts sometimes will be buying coffees that exceed 80 points on a cupping table.
Okay, so let's just even slow down there a little bit. So cupping is essentially like a tasting. It's formally called a cupping in coffee. And how is it? This is what I couldn't understand before and still don't. But how is it objective? How is this thing objective and not just, oh, I like it, or the kinds of biases that get into your head and stuff? Like how is that done in an objective way that it could get a score that
totally
counts?
So I'll answer the question kind of in two parts. So cupping is usually you go through, there's a full classes and schools that you can take to make sure that your tongue is kind of working properly. And then during that, you go through a series of calibration. So you cup and taste with other people, and then they help get you calibrated to kind of the groups.
You literally calibrate your tongue.
Yes, to other people. So, and some people will cup heavy, some people will cup light. You'll like, I tend to be a little more heavy-handed and give out lower scores than maybe some other people would. But you keep those things in mind, and then you make adjustments for them. But whenever you're cupping through a huge table, the big thing is just to pick out the defects. So like there are a bunch of different defects in coffee growing and coffee roasting and all those different things.
Like what?
You can taste them. So
what's
like
a defect that you can taste in a brand? Like it's a blind cupping. Like you can take something with no information about, like a blind trial in medicine or something. Like somebody in Omaha and somebody in Seattle can do it, and if you both pull out the same defect and call it, then that can confirm it, or then you can check for that or verify or whatever.
A really quick and universal defect is potato defect, which happens a lot in Burundian and Rwandan coffees. There's a bug that will kind of bore into the coffee, and then fungus will grow inside of it and make the coffee taste and smell like potatoes. It's very clear. Nobody will miss it in the entire world. So like that's a clear one. And then there's other smaller ones like
can it have just a little bit of that or a lot of that?
Well, potatoes it'll have it or it won't. But you can there's other ones like coffees that are picked before they're fully ripe. You can't see the seed variation in color. So the only time that you can see it is once you roast the coffee. And then so like that coffee that's underripe when it's picked will come out lighter in color than the rest of the coffees, and we call those Quakers. And so like if you get a bunch of Quakers, your brew will taste like really peanutty and kind of just this general underripe flavor. It won't have like full sweetness and won't have full acidity and those sorts of things. So those are kind of those defects that you can have more or less of and those sorts of things. But but people will be able to call those out. And then
so it's not just saying I like it, I give it a high score because I'm me or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are blogs and stuff that are based on preference, and people say, well, yeah, I really enjoyed this coffee or something. But cupping is supposed to be an objective thing that's supposed to help the industry kind of calibrate together.
Okay.
And
so that leaves you with 80 plus being good. What you just say at least
Specialty.
is good. Specialty coffee, good coffee.
Yep.
So you're saying Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts are right around that borderline?
they buy coffees generally from like 80 points to like 84 for their general stuff.
And what is Folgers?
Folgers, generally speaking, would probably be in the 70s range.
Are there coffees that are 50 and below?
You know, I
just
honestly
undrinkable?
haven't tasted any myself because I kind of privileged, I guess.
Yeah.
But there certainly are. I mean, there's two different species of coffees. There's Arabica and Robusta. Robusta is generally what gets used in like instant coffees and stuff like that. And those are not going to score very well.
So you're basic, and then what is the upper range of the finest coffees that people deal with and stuff like that?
We're getting into a little bit of preference there. Generally speaking, the highest scoring coffees you're going to get are like 94s, and those are like really at the top where people are paying $80 a pound or more, you know. So,
But specialty, when you find expensive coffee somewhere that's $20 a
bag,
pound,
yeah.
That's going to be scoring.
That's going to be in the upper 80s usually.
Upper 80s.
Yeah, 88,
Still more
89,
expensive
sometimes in
than
the
Starbucks.
90s. Yeah, absolutely.
So a good regular cup of coffee somewhere might be an 80.
Yeah, a good regular cup of coffee, like at your average coffee shops, could probably be about an 84.
Not
Like at
necessarily
your like independent, like nice quality coffee shop. And then once you get to kind of the nicer specialty shops, you'll be in the 87 range usually.
Okay.
But we don't usually think of like cups of coffee as having those kinds of scores. But you know, if you were gonna just pick the coffee itself, then that's probably what it would get on a cupping table. Something around
Okay.
there.
So, all right. So where were we? That's cupping.
That was specialty coffee. We're gonna go into the
Specialty
waves.
coffee, and now I don't want to get sidetracked.
Totally.
I want to get to waves here.
So and then I wanted to also mention one other thing too. The whole industry actually just put out this really specialized document for tasting coffee. Because you know, you and I maybe we've tasted different things, right? So I've tasted a blackberry that was grown wild in the Pacific Northwest, and you know somebody else has only ever had a frozen blackberry or something. So I say blackberry, and I mean something that's bright, sometimes tart, sometimes sweet. You know, that mixed thing, and this other person only knows like a corn syrupy kind of blackberry flavor. And so I say blackberry and I mean one thing, and that person hears blackberry means here's another thing, right?
Yeah.
So a solution to that is that a couple of universities, Texas A&M and another one, put together this lexicon of flavors, so that whenever you say like you're talking about blueberry in coffee, there's actually a product that you can go on the store in Walmart, buy it, and taste that, and that's what it means when you say blueberry.
A universal reference.
Exactly,
frame. Yeah.
exactly. So
It's something that you could buy that's available everywhere.
yeah, so there's like 114 different items on this thing, and we actually, with a couple of friends, we put together this big event in Seattle where we invited everybody from the coffee industry to come and try all those together. So like those are ways that we can all calibrate and use the words the same way and all those sorts of things, and kind of hit a little bit more objectively.
So that is kind of scientific, at least.
Yeah, that was built for a scientific purpose, so that sensory analysts could taste coffees, and you could send them to one of either of these schools, and they come out with the exact same flavor descriptors of the same intensity. And those sorts of things. It was super cool, really important, and that'll be a major thing that drives quality in coffee. Now the waves thing, I guess you'd say, generally speaking, we think of the first wave as like the industrialization of coffee. So coffee used to be roasted at home pretty much entirely. Everybody ground their own coffee at home. So they just go to the market, you know, your local store.
Buy some beans.
Buy some green coffee, roast it, brew it up. Then you have like the industrialization of it, which is like your Folgers, your U-Ban, kind of your like pre-ground, ready to go. It's ready to be made sort of thing. And then
Industrial's wave one.
Wave one, yeah.
Okay.
And then second wave is like when people started to enjoy coffee, right? And so you'd like go out to the coffee shop and get like a mocha. It would come with like whipped cream and all those sorts of things.
Is that literally in the late 90s? Then?
Yeah, totally. Well, you could bump back a little bit early in the late 70s, like right around when Starbucks kind of started getting prime, but definitely by the mid 80s.
It wasn't. So it was existing in second wave before it was mainstream.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand.
Yeah, and then and so then kind of you hit your third wave where there's shops that are kind of trying to get back to coffee, just appreciating the coffee itself. You get shops that are serving like absolutely no sugar or milk in their coffee shops. And those sorts of things.
So I went to one of those in Kansas City. I was so angry. I didn't know what I never seen of this or heard any of this.
Do you know
I
what
went
it was
to this. It was like a sciencey lab place, and they had beakers of coffee, and there wasn't cream or sugar in the place. And I went in there. I was so angry. It was super hip.
Yeah.
Here's how I would describe it. It was like I'm from Seattle, and it's a coffee place, and Seattle's full of hip and hipster people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went to this place that somebody told me about in Kansas City,
Yeah.
and it was triple the hipster that Seattle is, and I almost felt like it was a caricature, like they don't even know what hipsters are like, and they overdid it. I didn't really know it was a thing that was going on, or a wave, or a thing. I just was like, because I've never even seen that in Seattle, and they were really snooty acting, and I didn't understand what it was, and I asked for cream and sugar, and they like thought I was an idiot. I didn't even want sugar, I just wanted cream, but they didn't have it, and they served it this way. I did drink the coffee, and it was the first time I ever drank black coffee, and thought it was great, though.
Oh, that's good. Okay, cool.
So,
good for them. At least their game was strong.
Right. Yeah, so I sat there and drank. I was like, well, shit, I paid $4 for this. I'm going to have to drink it or something. I was having coffee with somebody. And
like, oh, this is actually good.
It was really good.
Well, that's like, when people talk trash, it's like, don't talk trash unless you can back it up. At least they backed it up.
Right. And then there's one in Nashville called Barista Parlor that annoys me. When I've been there a few times, people have mixed feelings.
I got a ton of friends over there.
And it's good. Yeah. But it's annoying too. It takes 4 minutes to get anything, and it's very expensive, and it just feels like you're in over. I feel like I'm in over my head when I go in an environment like that.
Yeah, totally.
That's the third wave environment? I mean, it doesn't have to be a
more
company with
kind of an extreme iteration of third wave, but that's definitely a major aspect of what third wave has kind of become known as. And as a response, there's actually a coffee publication that started using a term new wave to describe coffee shops that kind of come from a third wave tradition but are way more understanding on people wanting to add things to their coffee.
Right. I mean, because
doing like coffee mocktails,
want people to get into it. Like,
totally.
I understand being exclusive, but it's just like with anything. It's just, even just with like political stuff, it's like you can be right about something, but you're not going to convince anybody.
Totally.
If you care about it. Yeah. And that's what I think is really interesting about you is, man, you're committed to getting people into coffee, not buying your stuff or whatever. I mean, you want to be a coffee ambassador. You want to teach people. You want people like me to get interested.
Yeah,
and that's
it's awesome.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I guess if you had to put like the terms of the waves and stuff, that's kind of where those.
So land. It doesn't have anything to do with the necessarily the score of the coffee or its lightness or darkness.
I would say that generally, if you had to put some generalizations on third and new wave shops, you're looking at higher scoring, lighter roasted coffees almost always.
Lighter roasted,
generally speaking.
See, that confused me too, because as I've been here in Seattle and in big cities, it seems like the people that are into coffee traditionally for the last decade or so are liking really dark coffees, and they brag about it, or I just drink it dark or super dark or and stuff, and I never really liked that.
Yeah,
I want it to be creamy or relatively light. If I see breakfast blend, I love McDonald's coffee, for instance. I really do love McDonald's coffee.
Actually,
I had 2 today.
Pretty solid coffee.
Really?
Yeah, as far as the chains go, the only shop the only like fast food restaurant I can think of that has better coffee is Chick-fil-A.
Really?
So, yeah.
Well, Chick-fil-A doesn't have. Yeah, I don't like Chick-fil-A's. This is really dumb detail, but I don't get coffee at Chick-fil-A because it's not easy to get the cream in it. And at McDonald's, I can say,
give me 2 creams.
Yeah,
totally.
And it's already comes anyway.
Yeah,
but
I appreciate that.
But I do like the McDonald's coffee. But so it's been a thing that I thought that people that are into coffee like darker coffees, but your coffee and this other stuff, which I don't want to confuse with third wave itself.
Sure.
But it's these light and very light coffees.
Yeah,
in fact,
absolutely.
It's so light, in fact, that some of them taste frilly and fruity and almost
floral
obnoxious to me in a way that I don't. Even like I just want more of a plainer, darker, not darker, but
but like a classic coffee.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing. But when I got into this is like when we first were developing. Let me explain to people specifically what's going on here. I'm not trying to make this whole podcast be a marketing thing, but I got into this because we started a company called bc.supply. We sell T-shirts, leather goods. I don't know what you call it, a heritage brand or a lifestyle brand. I don't know. We're just selling stuff that we like. Nice belts, nice wallets, and coffee that we drink.
Sure.
And so we wanted to find a really good coffee, reached out to you, and tried to figure out if we could do a blend or a roast that would be our own thing that I would and our team would love and that we would drink and then also sell and share with people.
Yep.
Coffee somehow goes with podcasting in some way. It's like it's more of a daytime thing than a nighttime thing. Yeah. So that's how we did this, and we do have a coffee right now, and we call it our Seattle blend. Yeah. And you and I developed. I told you what I liked and didn't like, but you developed the blend for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so during doing those cuppings for that, it was like we were tasting all this stuff, and there was just so many fruity flavors in there. I was like, well, couldn't it just be more like coffee? Is what I kept thinking.
Totally.
And a short story about that is I I was almost nervous that what we even arrived at was a little bit different than what I was used to. I was like, well, people like this. And once we finally found something that I really liked, and then it went into production, I didn't have it for a while. And then I started getting it at home and have gone through a few bags of it at my house now. And I was like, yeah. And like after I did it, especially after a couple, drinking it for a while, I really got into it. Then I ran out and went and got what I used to drink.
Sure.
And then when I drank it, I was like, ugh. The coffee I used to drink, which is expensive, it's the expensive Seattle coffee company that I like.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, this doesn't. Where's all those flavors? Where's all the stuff
totally.
I've gotten used to? And it was just boring and dull and. I don't know what it is. So now I kind of understand what's behind that light stuff, which at first was really kind of threw me off, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we generally speaking, as people, we come to things with expectations, and if you're expecting one thing and you get something that's a little bit different, maybe you don't like it initially, but then after you try it a couple more times, sometimes maybe you find things you like about it.
It's just what you're almost just like what you're used to. It's weird.
Totally.
Like, you remember the first time you ever drank alcohol? If you drink, it's like it didn't taste good. It's still technically it still tastes the same.
Yeah,
I like it now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the only difference.
Yeah, you kind of acquire taste, but you gain a reference point.
Yes, exactly. And so, I mean, I heard you say this before, but it's not. You are really careful not to say other coffee's bad. Is that a rule that you have?
Generally speaking,
like you say,
there are
different,
preferences.
or some people do like boring, dirt-tasting, burnt coffee.
Totally.
If you like that, that's okay.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with liking that. Absolutely. I don't, but plenty of people do, and that's great.
You're not condescending toward that. You don't
try
think
not
those
to
people
be.
are wrong.
No, definitely not. No, you can have preferences. So
it's a weird thing with taste, Like, are we tasting the same thing, and you like it and I don't? What a weird concept that I've always struggled with that concept. To be quite honest, that if there's something I like, and then somebody else says they don't like it, are they not tasting? Like, I can't understand that. I have a really hard time understanding. Do they have different tastes, but they have a different physiology than me? What's making people like different stuff is really hard to. It's really hard to get a grip on that.
Yeah, but I mean, both of those things. I think cilantro is like a really commonly cited example, but like to some people, they literally have a gene in their body that makes cilantro taste like soap.
I've heard that.
And, you just can't have it. And then there are like super tasters who have oversensitivity to bitterness, and like pregnant women taste better and more aggressively than even non-pregnant women.
And so they'd be thrown off on more things. So that's physiological reason. All those what you're saying, but then there's also the psychological element, which is huge. Like if you associate, like if you worked at Wendy's and then you go into some fast food fryer place, I bet you feel sick. You don't want it.
Yeah.
But if I walk into Wendy's and say, it smells good, I get surprised.
Well,
or if you were beat as a kid and your dad always drank a certain coffee, you're not going to like it.
Yeah, probably.
But I mean, the psychological element is, or just how you remember nostalgically the taste of your mom's biscuits. I mean, you're not going to be objective about biscuits in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's just no such thing.
Yeah, I mean, we are the sum of our experiences, right? So it's like, you have all these experiences throughout your life, and then they kind of inform your preferences on things because that's just who you are. Like, that's literally your experiences have built you to have these expectations for things. So, it's like I remember I used to really, really enjoy the smell of Starbucks, and now it's like, I kind of walk by and I'm like, oh man, that smells like dark roasted coffee.
So is it burnt? People say that is the Starbucks coffee is that darkest. I mean, super burnt, or is that bad? Well, you're not gonna say it's bad.
Yeah,
but
it's much darker than my preference. Almost always. Some of their reserve coffees, they still have some complexity of flavor, and I can taste some things in them and stuff. But
why are they so on that end of the spectrum? If they were gonna have mainstream success, it seems like placing themselves on such a dark end. I mean, it must be strategic.
They used to be so back in like the 90s. Dark coffee, and this kind of gets back to your point earlier, like darkly roasted coffee was specialty coffee, like Pete's and like Seattle's Best and Starbucks and stuff. Like these were the innovators and those sorts of things. And so they kind of built people to get these preferences, and it's very much a pendulum, right? Like you swing to one end, and then kind of like the new guard of people are trying to like get some traction, and they bring the pendulum back, and it's kind of a swinging thing. So that just kind of happens. And I think I've never talked to him, but from what I understand, Howard Schultz just really enjoys darker roasted like Sumatran coffees, right? Like it's just a preference, right? And so like you naturally are gonna kind of lead your establishment towards the things that you like, because that's what you're good at. So that's probably part of what came about. So
that's pretty interesting. The if where do you think the most people is there? What's the data that says what most people like? What is the average thing that most people like?
Well, there have been studies, a little bit older now, but there are studies put out that kind of give. They sample a bunch of just average Americans.
Mm-hmm.
They'll like give them different coffees and figure out like what they like and what they don't like, and then they'll we can put scores on those things. So some of these studies found out that back in the 70s, average Americans liked coffees that were brewed at a certain strength. So the actual strengths were 1.15% to 1.35% coffee, and then they liked an extraction. So how much they took out of the coffee at between 18 and 22%. And so then they just found this range, and that's like they're like, okay, so most of the people that we surveyed enjoyed coffee that were in these ranges. So then they kind of gave that as like the standard. They call that the gold cup or optimum balance. So like, you can do studies and stuff and you find out what people like. I think it's probably time for a reevaluation of those because I think a lot of people's opinions have changed on what they like. Because I notice a lot more people are liking stronger coffee now. Especially paired with the lighter roasted coffees, like they want the strength up on the upper end of it, just because it's like it's not as you don't have all those bitter kind of components that you want to water down a little bit and make it easier to drink. So,
man, I got a bunch of more stuff I want to talk about.
Sure.
This coffee stuff is, inherently, again, it goes into nerd territory.
Absolutely.
So let me tell you guys about something else that goes into nerd territory with the resurgence of nerdness being. With nerdness becoming a popular thing and even a bragging point for a lot of things, there's people that are really big into stuff like pop culture and nostalgia, stuff like that. So let me tell you about our sponsor, Loot Crate. So if you're on let's say an epic, say you like epic stuff or you need some new housewares and you like collectibles, well, Loot Crate brings you between 4 and 6 of the coolest curated mystery items every month straight to your doorstep. It's the best surprise that is coming. So essentially what they do is they pick stuff from pop culture, comics, movies, and they have a different theme every month, and they have a bunch of different types of boxes. So it's really fun to get stuff in packages sent to you, delivered to your door. We got one the other day at our house, and me and my wife and daughter, we just all split up the stuff that we like because we all like different stuff. But the neat thing about these collectibles is if you see, let's say at people's desks, you see all those figurines, like whether you're into Assassin's Creed or you're into anime and all these things, you see all these like figures and stuff like that. And it's really cool to take stuff that you like, that feels good, that you're into, and then be able to display it for other people in an adult, grown-up way, right? We don't have we don't play with toys anymore.
Well,
but,
you don't, but I do.
Yeah, well, some people do, but the way you can play with a toy as an adult is get really cool collectible stuff and display it in your home or at your office. And I see stuff like this all the time. All the people that work at Tooth and Nail Records used to just have all these figures of the different things they were into. It's just a thing of expression. So Loot Crate, what they're doing this month, their theme is Origin. So they've got an awesome exclusive items from your old school favorites. So this January, see where it all started, explore the iconic origins with historic items from Superman, Captain America, Mario, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, including, as always, they've got a monthly t-shirt and pin. I got the t-shirt last month. It was Mr. Robot. It's a nice black shirt. I can wear it. I love it. So you have until the 19th of January at 9 p.m. to subscribe to get this month's crate. And when that cutoff happens, that's it. It's over. And so I want people to do it and use my promo code. Of course, go to lootcrate.com/down and enter the promo code DOWN to save $3 off any new subscription today. Get it for a gift for somebody. lootcrate.com/down, promo code DOWN, $3 off. Thank you. One other thing I'll say while I'm saying promotional things is the coffee that we do have, the Seattle Blend, is for sale at bc.supply. That's our website. That's our things, bc.supply. And I tell you what we're going to do is, I'll just give a promo code out here for anybody because I want everybody to try it, and I would love their feedback. I want everybody to know what this... yes, absolutely. So, Reva, can we do 25% off? Is that good? Is that promo code ready to go? As of right now, live, somebody can do it? Okay, so as of right now, we just decided this right before we started. We're going to do 25% off on the coffee, which is no excuse not to do that. It's a good deal. It's great coffee. Seattle Blend. It's medium. I'll let you explain what it is here in a second. But go to bc.supply, check out, and use the promo code DOWN, and you'll get 25% off of coffee. And then figure out if you like it or not. And while you're at it, you've been meaning to see our new company and website, and all the other products we got over there are good too.
Awesome,
so,
by the way.
thank you.
Yeah, good
okay,
work.
so tell us about this specific blend that we have.
Yeah, so
first of all, it's a blend, not a single origin.
Yeah, so it's currently a mix of Guatemalan coffee and a Peruvian coffee, Guatemalan heavy. So the main back of it is a coffee called Shoshawa, which comes from Guatemala. And it's kind of the whole idea for this blend was to be able to get a coffee that everybody would like.
Yes.
Or as close to it as we could possibly
that I
get.
like.
Yeah,
that's the main goal.
Exactly. And so it's like, we want a coffee that's not going to be over roasted and not like bitter, but it has enough kind of complexity to keep kind of the black coffee drinkers and maybe even the coffee snobs kind of happy. But you could throw cream and sugar in and it's going to taste just fine. Because, a lot of the coffees that like the coffee snobs and folks that like coffees like me, a lot of times they have really high acidity and like they're kind of sour at times, and you add sugar and cream to it and it tastes kind of funky. So we wanted to have like this nice kind of really sweet overall quality to it, so it would take cream and sugar really well. Or you could, just drink it straight up and taste nice.
I like it. I drink cream only in coffee. I think sugar ruins it. I think it's wrong to put sugar in the coffee at this point. I know you don't think it's right or wrong, but I think it's wrong. But I like it really creamy.
All right, no, that's cool.
But this one works really well with cream, but I like it black too. It's one of the only coffees that, only this type of nice quality coffee do I drink black. But do you know the score on it? How's it?
Yeah, this one's like an 87.
An 87 score.
So it's kind of right on that nice range.
Yeah.
It doesn't have an overwhelming amount of complexity or anything, but it's really clean and sweet.
It's definitely a primer, a gateway thing into nicer and specialty and lighter and complex coffee. That's the way. That's how I would explain it. And it feels. I'd have to tell you the truth. When I get up in the morning and see my own bag of coffee that I helped design, it's a good feeling, and it's really just what I like the most.
Yeah, and it's good.
Favorite.
It's really, really tasty. I really like the coffee in general.
Okay, well, let's talk about making coffee. That's the next thing. This kind of crazy. Here's where I'm at on the evolution. I've got a nice induction kettle.
Nice.
The Hario or something.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's what it is.
No, that's right.
And so I have a kettle that heats up, and then I do a pour over. I have just a Yeti tumbler that I like that I usually have sitting here, and I have a cone-shaped Hario thing, and I put in 2 scoops in the grinder, and right in the middle on 20. The setting's 20. It's like right in the middle. Yep. And I put 2 scoops of coffee in there.
Very good.
And then I just pour that over. I don't measure beyond that. I don't use a scale or anything.
Well, fix that. Get better.
Why does it? I mean, but that's what I just can't even. I don't even want to buy a scale. But why do I need to buy a scale? I use 2 scoops of coffee.
Totally.
It's a big deal.
I get it. So the big deal, at least it depends on what kind of coffee. If you're going to drink the exact same coffee every single time, then you could probably get by without a scale or something. But like the general point of a scale is that coffee. It extracts the same way based on mass. So it's like the total amount of weight that you have of coffee. And the mass changes depending on where the coffee's from, how darkly or lightly the coffee is roasted. Because like the darker roasted coffees, if you have 2 tablespoons, that might weigh, 12 grams. But 2 tablespoons of lightly roasted coffee might be 18 grams.
It's a density thing then.
Exactly. So the darker you roast the coffee, generally the less dense it's going to be. And so, but it'll still come out to be the same
Let me get my mind
strength.
around that. When you roast the coffee, essentially you're cooking it in a way where some of the mass or moisture is evaporating out of it. Therefore, it is lighter. So, okay.
That's exactly it.
Got it.
And so, but the way that coffee works in terms of strength, so the overall strength of the cup that you're going to get is based on the weight of the coffee, not on the volume of the coffee that you start with. And so it's like if you're going to brew, like in your Yeti tumbler, it's probably like 24 ounces, maybe 16 ounces, something like that.
I think it's 20.
Yeah. So, you use enough to fill that up, but you're going to use 20 ounces of water every single time, but you may be starting with, like 30 grams of coffee. And then if you switch to a different coffee, then you're going to get 45 grams of coffee in there. And that coffee is going to come out way stronger or way weaker than, either way.
So you're not even getting I understand. So especially if you're comparing different coffees and switching, in order to have a good reference, you need to standardize
Plus,
that.
I mean, scales are, they're like $14-15, which obviously is an expense, but you can use them for tons of other stuff like cooking and all that stuff. So
drugs.
I recommend, that's my favorite thing to use them for, like cutting lines up, like taken care of.
Well, so now when I'm pouring the coffee over, so pour over method already sounds over hip to me.
You're killing it.
Toby
Good work.
made fun of me when he saw that I had that pour over in the first place.
Yeah,
But
beat him up.
But I mean, it's better than make a Mr. Coffee Maker.
Absolutely.
And of course now K-Cups, which I was into when I first found about them, are pretty. People don't like K-Cups anymore. There's lots of negative stuff to say about them, I guess.
Hashtag kill the K-Cup.
Yeah. But I did that for a while. But so doing this pour over thing is kind of fun. But it's a little bit, it causes some anxiety. Like, do I really need to do it better than this? Do I need to go slower? Did I touch the side? Did I rinse the filter? Does that matter? Does that matter? Just tell me it doesn't really matter.
No, it definitely does matter.
I don't rinse the filter.
You should rinse the filter.
I can't. You know what I did? I poured water over the filter into my mouth to see if I could taste. I couldn't taste any filter taste.
Oh man, you're killing me. So do me a favor though. Try this again. Do it into a cup. Okay, so just like rinse the filter and then move the brewer over to another cup and then just add some water over it again and then taste the waters that you get out of those cups.
Taste a rinsed filter water. And I should have done that.
Exactly. Yeah. So try that and then let me know what you think.
Okay.
Yeah. Follow up with me.
Okay.
Because you can definitely taste the difference.
Okay. And then what about how you put their method of pour, how fast, slow, and if you go in a spiral, and whether the spiral's clockwise or not?
Well, the spiral doesn't make a big deal.
Okay.
Unless, if you're on Australia, flip it.
Yeah. Right.
But no, I mean, like those are the things that you can geek out or not geek out on, right? Generally, if you're making like a V60, which is what you're making at home, that cone-shaped one, you just start in the middle and then you kind of go in a spiral until everything's kind of covered. Let it sit for like 45 seconds or so, and then just start pouring more water, roughly as slow as you can get it until it kind of fills up to the top and then drains out, and then you're good to go.
So
I mean,
consistent,
basic.
What about the temperature of the thing? Because that's the other thing. Like I heard, or Aaron Sprinkle told me, well, you don't want it to be right at 210 or 211 or anything. Like it comes out boiling. You don't want exactly that. You want it to cool down a little bit. Yeah. But again, I don't use my instant read thermometer to check my temperature anymore. I'm going to wait 10 seconds or 30 seconds or what. I mean,
good. That's good enough. So the SCAA official regulations or not regulations, recommendations, I guess, is that the brew bed, so the area where the coffee and the water are hanging out together, that temperature, you want it to be between 195 and 205 degrees Celsius. So, generally speaking, whenever you start from a kettle or something, like, 10 seconds off the boil, that brings it down to 211. And then by the time that you're done pouring through the air and adding...
Did you say Celsius? That'd be Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit, yeah. But then by the time, you get it into a cold dripper or something, the temperature in that brew bed is going to be right about right. So, just wait 10 seconds off the boil, basically.
Yeah.
Just solid.
And if it's it extracts different or burns something.
Yeah,
if it's too hot?
There are a variety of different things that affect extraction, and temperature is one of them. So the hotter the temperature of something, the more quickly it's going to extract.
Okay, so extraction itself being the amount of, I don't know see if we can define it exactly, but it's the process of getting the flavor out of the coffee, staining the water. I don't know what other terminology there, but is extraction... is it objective? Is it measurable?
Yes.
Can you test a coffee and say, this is extracted to 86%?
Yeah.
How do you measure that?
Yeah, so there are two different ways. The most effective, well, I guess there's three, but there are two regular kind of normal methods that people will use. One is with a TDS meter and one's with a refractometer. The refractometer is much more accurate. And so what that does is you take a sample of the coffee that you brewed, and then you put it in this little chamber, and you flip it out, and it bounces a light beam through it. It's like Kanye wrote a song about it. But it'll bounce that light beam through it, read how off, because it'll bounce a light beam straight off, and then it'll see where it comes back to, and it'll use that to measure how much non-water is in that coffee. And then so it'll tell you, how much percentage it is of coffee solids. And so then... So like in a case where, generally speaking, most brewed coffee is 98.7% water, so it'll tell you that there's 1.3%
I see.
non-coffee in it.
Okay.
And then you can use that information. You say, okay, well, that means then you can go back and do the math and figure out that, okay, so I used, 20% of the coffee's mass ended up in this coffee, and so you have a 20% extraction at that point. And again, if you think back to what I was mentioning earlier about that study that did what people like or whatever, 18 to 22% is generally where Americans like extraction to be at.
18 to 22%.
Yeah, and like the tools to do that, they're not cheap. I don't even own one because they're like $850. But you can use your tongue to kind of get you close too. Right. Extraction works the exact same way for every coffee, in every brew method. The lighter ends of extraction you extract acids first. So the sour parts of coffee get extracted first. That's like usually the first 0 to 18% of total extraction that comes out of the coffee. Minerals are in there as well, but mostly it's like acids and those sorts of things. And then kind of your 18 to 22% range, you get your sugars. So that's kind of where you're wanting to target, is to get as much sugar as you can get into your coffee. And then once you push past that, with exceptions for a few grinders and if you're like sieving your coffee and super nerdy stuff, but once you start pushing past that, you get into like bitter components that make your coffee taste bad, right? So the idea is just to use that information to get you the sweetest tasting cup of coffee you can get, basically.
You can trial and error your way through your own coffees till you get there. So the other thing interesting about the third wave that's a big component of it is the ethics, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because now, people never cared in the 80s about the coffee, where it came from, or the farmer.
Yeah.
So now we have this blend of, I don't even know if we're talking much super science, or if we're still on the cursory level of it. I've heard you talk way more in depth than we are even right now. But there's also the ethical thing about it, which that kind of bleeds together, is my point. So you'll talk about fair trade, you'll talk about the workers and how their methods and what they do actually starts to matter beyond, I like the taste of this. So now you're saying these people they live in this village and it's at this altitude and they dry the coffee this certain way. And then they get paid this way, or they ship it. So it's got this really interesting infusion, pardon the pun, of
nailed it.
of the process that's going on that affect the taste, and the fact that you're buying into and being socially aware of the ethical concerns of coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of a general principle in my mind is that quality kind of implicitly promotes ethics. Right, like in the terms of coffee, generally,
that's a good point.
Generally speaking, the higher the quality of the coffee, generally,
or of
the more
anything,
ethical,
the quality of anything, right?
Yes,
wouldn't that's interesting.
Almost
takeaway.
entirely, right? So, like generally, with coffee, if you're buying coffees that are scoring above 85, for the most part, those are pretty ethical coffees.
And expensive.
They're going to be more expensive, right?
But so that goes together. That's part of the reason why people can justify spending this amount of money.
Totally.
What are these price ranges for normal specialty coffee a pound?
It depends on kind of. There are a lot of different steps along the chain, but FOB, which is like full on board price, so off like onto the boat, moving on its way up. You're looking at anywhere from. The low end is like $275 per pound up to, it can go up to $140 a pound. But generally speaking, most specialty coffee is in the like $275 up to like
for the grower, for the farmer.
For the roaster to purchase, generally speaking. But there's also importers and those sorts of things.
Well, that sounds really cheap compared to the price people pay out of stores and stuff. So where's the rest of the cost come from?
Yeah. So,
well, first of all, that $275 is an ethical treatment and fair price to those people.
Fair trade price is, I think, $1.65 per pound.
Okay.
The last time I checked, and then it also has a stipulation if the C market, so coffee's bought on a commodities market, so if the C market is at 165 or higher, then it's a 20% premium over C market. Period.
Okay.
Most specialty coffee is going to be way more than that.
Okay.
Almost entirely, but like that price is usually makes it back to the grower or the farmer, and then how the pickers get paid is a really important element of what we're doing, but that isn't necessarily reflected in the just cut and dry prices. But roasters, like you think about it, you have a lot of stuff to try to cover, right? As far as costs go, right? Because like where all that cost comes from, I guess, if you're gonna break it down into actual hard numbers, is you got your coffee itself, and then you have the person that you're paying to roast the coffee, then you have the gas and everything to pay for you're burning as you're roasting the coffee. Then you have anywhere from $28,000 to $180,000 piece of equipment that you're trying to pay off. Then you have a rent that you're trying to pay. All this sort of things,
the skilled labor here too.
Exactly.
The roasting is a very
and then packaging. And packaging costs $1.25 a bag. Or 80 cents a bag, somewhere around there. So all those things start to add up, and then you have to be able. Whoever's selling it has to make a small margin off it or something. So that's what happens when you buy a global commodity.
So to get coffee for that Folgers price is both heavily industrialized and really not taken care of.
Totally.
Is it unethical to drink that coffee?
I've seen coffees that at the grocery store you can buy it for like $4 a pound. Like that there is not a chance in the world that the farmer received any reasonable pay for that. Period. They had like a strip mine or a strip farm kind of system where they're just running machines through like these big strips of trees and stuff like they do in Brazil or like Vietnam or something. But that's horrible for the environment, and it's not going to be a good quality coffee.
Do you think it's bad? I mean, do you think it's unethical to drink or really cheap coffee?
Personally, yes.
Some people, I'm sure, do. But
personally, I wouldn't drink it.
You're contributing like to harm done to other people by drinking that low grade of quality.
Yeah, exactly. And somehow that company's still making money off of it.
Yeah.
So it's like they're making money and nobody else throughout the supply chain is being taken care of. So it's like, that one person at the top's like making all the money.
Well, I love what you said about equality being, inextricable from or connected to the ethics of something, because that's really is true. I mean, that's a neat way to look at it, is that, and that's what, like, it's what allows people to go pay the extra $5 a pound or whatever, because they know the psychological part actually plays into your enjoyment of the product.
Absolutely.
And we see that in clothing and other industries these days, where people are like, you know what, I'll pay for organic food, or I'll pay for this cotton or not sweatshop labor. All those things go together. So it's a pretty neat thing that if by coffee educating and increasing quality and awareness, you're just improving like the world. I mean,
that's kind of the idea.
People's enjoyment. People, because you really enjoy a nicer quality thing that you're invested in and know stuff about. You enjoy it more.
Yeah, totally.
And so you really are increasing, and of course taking care of the farmer. And
everybody gets paid a decent wage and they can at least live.
So just by letting people know about coffee, you're just you're improving the world. I mean,
that's kind of one hope, I guess. Maybe that's a little far stretch for me, but overall, as an industry, I mean, coffee's not a small industry. It's like $9 billion. I think it's bigger than that. It's big, huge, though. Man. It's a huge industry. So,
last thing I would like to cover is caffeine. Is it good? Is it bad? Is there a problem with that? What tell us about where are you at with caffeine? Is it as a drug?
Well, I'm not a scientist, so I'm making no health claims or anything like that. Coffee has it, and I like coffee, so I kind of like caffeine. I personally, I try not to get overly dependent on it. So I'll try to limit my caffeine consumption throughout the day.
Why? I think some people say caffeine's just not even bad for you at all. Like, what does it even matter?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a self-control thing, right? I'm a Christian, so being that I don't necessarily want to have
being addicted to caffeine.
Yeah, you're giving up an element of yourself to something else, and so for me, that's important for me to just personally make that call of like not being overly reliant on it, because generally,
how many coffees do you drink a day?
Well, 2 or less, which is actually lower than the average. Most people drink at least 3. So I'll taste a ton of coffees, but I'll spit the coffee out like you would at like a wine tasting or something, right?
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd actually, just before I came here, I'd tried 18 different coffees. So.
And you just spit them out. Yeah, because I understand. I mean, I can't really drink much more than 3 without feeling a little jittery or something. But I definitely drink 3 coffees a day, I would say.
Totally. And there's nothing wrong with that. For me personally, I just want to make sure that
you don't have any health concerns for somebody that drinks 4 cups of coffee a day.
No, I think there's. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't make any claims.
Based on your.
I think you're allowed up to like. I think it's like 800 milligrams a day or something before you like heart will stop or something. And like a double shot of espresso has like 80 milligrams of caffeine, and like a 12-ounce cup of brewed coffee has like 120 milligrams. So like you can really pack them in there and probably be okay, unless you're like combining with like energy drinks or something. But it's one of those things where like if you're doing that back to back to back to back to back, like caffeine is a stimulant, so it increases like your heart rate, and so your heart is doing more work and those sorts of things. So if you're just like constantly loaded up on coffee every single day, your body's probably not running at its prime, just from my kind of, if I was going to spitball at it or something. So that'd be my guess.
It's an interesting thing because it's very little amount of effects from it, but people are certainly addicted to it.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
no doubt about that. It's just the addiction's consequences are relatively low or none.
Yeah, absolutely.
In some degree, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where having it every single day, a cup or 2 isn't that bad. If you're running like at the top, it's like your engine on your car, right? Like if you're running it, constantly close to red line, your car's going to get more damage from it, but doing it every once in a while, you're going to probably be okay. So,
what about What about the people say the benefits of coffee, like antioxidants are good for your heart? Like,
Sure.
are you aware of any? Do you have any stance
For the people
anecdotal anything on coffee being good for you?
Sure, yeah. I mean, for the people who are on video, you can see I'm not, not the healthiest dude in the world, so don't take health advice from me. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's every time I turn around, there's either a study that's like, oh, coffee's super good for you, or coffee's bad for you. Like, it just depends on who's funding the study, or if it's on a fake news site or something. But I mean, I know it has a lot more antioxidants than most things, right? So like it's better than like your artificially sweetened drinks that have caffeine added to them or something. But I don't drink coffee for the health benefits. I drink coffee because it tastes really good.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. Yeah, I just find a lot of joy in picking out the complexities of it.
So if you're drinking 2 coffees a day that are just for your own pleasure, what are they?
Oh man. Lately I've really been enjoying Central American coffees actually. So
Do you drink drip typically or what?
Oh yeah, usually I'll
do
make
a pour over. Or
yeah, I'll make pour overs the exact same way as you.
Often.
Yeah, so usually at home I'll just drink a V60 coffee in the morning. I'll split a Chemex with my wife usually, and then if I'm at shops I'll usually get like a pour over and an espresso or something. Every once in a while I'll get like a cappuccino or something.
It's so weird with that Chemex
nice.
and the pour over stuff. It's like no technology at all. Like we're talking about the stuff and the advancement and all the data and all the stuff, even the explosion of this, driven by technology. Yet coffee technology is hot water over a filter.
Absolutely,
and that's it.
Yeah,
you can make it with a hammer and cheesecloth if you needed to.
I have. Yeah, I used a paper towel one time to.
Yeah, right.
Filter, right.
That's all you need.
Yeah. So, it's kind of funny like that. Personally, I'm a fan of that aspect of things. Like I drive a manual vehicle. I like things that are simple and classic. But yeah, coffee is one of those things that you can get as deep as you want to go. There are plenty of brewers and those sorts of things that are really gadget heavy, and you can be as tech forward as you want to be with it. But you can also be as simple as you want. You can just throw coffee and water in a pot together, wait for the coffee to drop to the bottom, and pour off the water on the top, and you're good.
That's amazing.
That simple.
Well, that's great. I appreciate you being here today, and I'll remind people, everybody else, use the promo code DOWN and try out the coffee that we made together. You made the coffee, you roasted it, you picked it out, but I'm very happy.
No, we all did this together, man. Yeah. That's the whole point of the coffee. Is
good.
It brings everybody together all across the supply chain.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on the show today,
Thanks for having me.
Maxwell.
I really appreciate it.
All right. Is there anything you tell people to go? I mean, you're a high-profile coffee educator. What's your Twitter or website?
Sure. Yeah, I just started. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Maxwell A. Mooney. You can follow me on Instagram at the same. I have if you like looking at pictures of latte art, I have a whole feed of that at Seed Bearing. And then I also just started a coffee shop on my own up in Everett. It's called Narrative Coffee. You can find
Narrative Coffee in Everett, Washington, which is 20 miles north of Seattle. If you're up here, people visit.
Yeah.
Check
Not
that
open
out.
yet, but we will be.
That's great.
Yeah, so
congratulations and good luck
it.
on your coffee shop and all the stuff you do as an educator.
Thanks.
I enjoyed it very much. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.